clarifications? Sang Vivian.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of clarifications for SMS Janil and one clarification for SPS Bay. During my cut on the 20-minute town and 40-minute city, I have asked how many households today are staying within with 10 minutes walk to an MRT station, and how many current trips today to city are taking less than 45 minutes today, so we can have a benchmark as compared to our vision in 2040. And I hope SMS also can enlighten us whether MOT has given up hope to persuade government agencies and companies to have staggered working hours so as to smoothen out the traffic during the peak hours itself. For S7 Bay, I'm glad the LTA has made a clarification on homologations, but this is only one example I quote for agencies to look at how to cut red tape. I hope LTA is not being defensive and try to fit different figures, because the experience on the ground is actually a bit different. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I thank Mr. Ang Wei for the questions. He asked how many households are within a 10-minute walk to the MRT station today, and that proportion today stands at 64%. So 64% of households are within a 10-minute walk. And then how many current trips to the city take less than 45 minutes was the question. So if someone stays within 800 meters of a train station, 10 minutes walk, 3/4 of those peak period train-only journeys are completed within 45 minutes. But if we're looking at all public transport journeys today, only 55% are completed within 45 minutes. And his second point, he asked about staggered working hours. Yes, LTA and MOT will try our best to encourage people to adopt staggered working hours. It will be another strategy to help smoothen out the load and the demand of our public transport system.
Thank Mr. Ang for his clarification. Well, so as a response to his speech last week, perhaps he was just quoting a specific example, but LTA is committed to streamline homologation regulations, but not just that, but also in all processes, so that we can provide better services to the public. Thank you.
Ms. Low Yan Ling.
I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to SMS Janil, in particular Minister Komawan, and as well as MOT LTA for the good news of Hume MRT station. Throughout the years, Minister Koh and his team has been very patiently listening to our transport requests, and we are really very grateful for this good news. And in Gombak, in Hillview, in Hume, we stand ready to work with LTA MOT with regards to the building of the Hume MRT station. I have one clarification for SMS Janil. Is there a chance that the completion of the Hume MRT station can be completed before 2025, please?
Mr. Chairman, I thank Mayor Low Yan Ling for the question. We're in this position today because Mayor Low and her grassroots leaders have worked hard with our agencies as well as the MND and their agencies to look and see how developments can be brought into that area and new facilities can be created and new opportunities can be created, as a result of which we can now justify the ridership, I beg your pardon, for Hume Station going forward. So we do need some time to pass for those developments justifying the opening of Hume Station to occur. On top of that, it is not just that we have to open Hume Station, we have to build Hume Station, and that will take some time. There's going to be some architectural works, earthworks, ventilation shafts, and we have to do so together with the other developments around the area so that we don't obstruct some of the other new things that are coming. So we will try our best, but I'm pleased to repeat that we'll be opening Hume Station by 2025.
What you're hoping?
Sir, I would like to make a clarification for SMM's LAM regarding about the proposed cycling path in Bukit Panjang town. When is the cycling path going to be completed, and whether the cycling path is going to be a separate standalone cycling path away from the existing footpaths?
Mr. Chairman, just want to thank Dr. Teo Pin for that clarification.
The cycling path for Bukit Panjang area is targeted to be completed sometime in 2021. And this will be a standalone cycling path, which is separate from the existing footpaths.
Mr. Arasu Durasami.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for SMS Janil. I thank SMS Janil for his reply to my card. In his reply, he mentioned that since Tuas South is still in a development phase and the anticipated ridership will be low, can you then explain to me what is the rationale when we are about to spend $250 million to build the Founders Memorial Station, and there's not projected numbers of ridership in that particular station, I mean foot traffic, or what is the development process that's going to go around that particular station? Because your reply was it's still in development phase. So I anticipate Founders Memorial is also in development phase, that particular area, but you're also already projected to build a station there. So can you then explain to me the rationale as to why you can't look at a line down to Tuas South? Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's not that everything has to be developed before we bring in an MRT line or a transport, but it is the confidence around the ridership. So there's no single development or single facility that will say this is the right thing to do or this is the wrong thing to do. We have to look at the total expected projected demand. So for Tuas South, yes, in the long term, there may be a very different demand picture from what we expect today, but on the basis of what we are currently projecting, it's not something that we can justify at this point in time in the medium term.
Mr. Ang Hinki.
So I have two clarifications. One is for SMS Lam on air transport. I noticed that we are making a lot of effort to have air agreements in order for us to have more air traffic. I would like to find out whether or not LTA's, or rather MOT's mitigation measures for residents staying around the Seletar Airport site with regards to noise from increased air traffic can be mitigated, and are those mitigation measures effective? Second clarification is for SNS Janil. Thank you very much for agreeing to set up the tripartite committee for private hire drivers and with the industry. Just wondering whether LTA or MOT side will assist the industry to form association, because right now the operators are all individuals. So when they come for the meeting, they come as individual rather than a collective association. So sometimes the voices are very disparate and they don't have quite a common position on what is it that the industry operators want to bring to the table to negotiate. And secondly, I'd like to know his views on whether or not setting a higher age limit for private hire drivers moving forward is a measure in the right direction.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Mr. Ang for that clarification. In fact, we have received similar feedback from engineer Dr. Lee Biwa, and I do empathize with the disamenities with regards to noise pollution for residents who are staying in the vicinity of Seletar Airport. And in fact, CAAS is mindful of the noise generated by overflying aircraft, and they have been reviewing and adopting best practices in noise abatement measures according to international standards. To the extent possible, CAAS will direct aircraft to land from and take off towards direction which minimize flying over residential areas, and this will hopefully reduce the amount of noise disturbances. But however, for safety reasons, aircraft needs to land and take off into the wind. And depending on the prevailing wind conditions, it is sometimes unavoidable for aircraft to overfly residential areas, especially those in Yisun and Yio Chu Kang area. At the same time, CAAS also disallows older jet aircraft that do not meet international standards on aircraft noise certification from flying into Singapore. Jet aircraft which operates to Seletar Airport are generally newer and quieter ones. And recently, based on some of the feedback from residents and from the grassroots organizations, we have since 1st of January 2019, disallowed flights at Seletar Airport between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Every day, except for emergency and medical evacuation flights. And this will hopefully reduce the amount of noise pollution in the evening and at night.
Mr. Dennis Tan. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to answer Mr. Ang Wei Neng's question about the private hire vehicle drivers. Mr. Ang Hin Kee, I beg your pardon. I think the first part he was asking about the operators forming an association, because the drivers are already part of the National Private Hire Vehicle Association. Well, certainly we can engage with the operators and the businesses that do this. Potentially we have a number of businesses that can get involved in the P2P space. Some will be traditional taxi companies and transport operators. Some will be the very new mobility operators that we have seen come into Singapore, but potentially even tech companies could get into this. So it's not quite a very clear industry for who would be a partner. We will engage with them all, and if there's a need to form an association, I think we may have to look for some assistance to chair the committee and so on and so forth, but we will definitely be engaging Mr. Ang to help us engage in this process. The age limit for the PDVL is something that has been raised in the feedback that we have had as part of the consultation process for the P2P regulatory framework. It's not something that we are clear what is the right thing to do at this point in time. It's clear that there is a discrepancy in the age between the PDVL drivers and the taxi operators, the taxi drivers, the TDVL. We would have to look and see what would be a reasonable thing to do. We'll continue to engage with the industry as well as the drivers to see how to deal with this. It's something we're studying, and we'll come back to Mr. Ang and the House when we're ready with more information.
So Dennis Tan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 questions. The first question is for Minister Vivian. In the event of Singapore's withdrawal, the withdrawal of air traffic services by Singapore over South Johor or the Riau Islands, may I ask the Minister what is his view on how it would affect Changi as an air hub as well as its future development? My second question goes to SMS Janil. The SMS said that the bus and taxi operators are committed to using cleaner technology by 2040, if I hear him correctly. So may I ask the SMS that since the bus and taxi operators are already so committed, is there really still a need to use diesel tax to, in the words of Minister Heng Swee Keat, nudge these operators towards cleaner and more sustainable alternatives? My third and fourth question goes to SMS Lam Pin Min. Thank you, SMS Lam, for your answers for the SHAP PMD. And my clarification to you is that will the errant behavior of the customer hirers of the SHAP PMD operators be taken into account when LTA assess the relevant operators complying with the sandbox license conditions, or in respect of the specific hirers' eligibility to continue hiring e-scooters with any of the commercial operators? And my fourth question also to SMS Lam is on maritime, and I would be grateful if the SMS can clarify what is the status of the adoption of the 2012 amendment to the 1996 Protocol on the Convention of Limitation of Liability. When can we expect this to be introduced in our statutes? Thank you.
Mr. Vivian.
I thank Mr. Dennis Tan for that question. As I explained just now, I want to clearly differentiate between sovereignty and airspace and the responsibility for provision of air traffic services. So let's be very clear that we're not arguing about sovereignty. And as I also explained earlier, there's a long history as to why and how Singapore provides these air traffic services. I have also emphasized that the main objective, regardless of who is performing it, the main objective is the safety and efficiency of civil aviation. So I think we are a long way from the hypothetical scenario which you have posited. But I would say this: Changi is one of the world's busiest airports, and certainly in our immediate region, this is the focal point on which so many flights traverse. I explained earlier on, again, there are 740,000 flights through which are receiving air traffic services from Changi. Half of those flights land or take off from Changi. So our objective in all our ongoing discussions with our neighbors is to make sure that safety and efficiency is not compromised. And the other salient factor is this, that technology is also improving, and it will help improve the throughput as well as maintain safety and efficiency. And again, I refer to my earlier speech when I talked about distributed multimodal air traffic flow management. I apologize, and it's only been 1 week since I've been doing this. But the concept behind multimodal air traffic flow management is that by interconnecting the air traffic control systems of all the airports in the region, it enables all the airports to optimize, first to continue to act autonomously, but to optimize the total flow and the throughput flying in and leaving from those airports. And that's why I've explained that CAS is pioneering this technique and is doing so in an inclusive and open way. So both Indonesia and Malaysia are participating with CAS. Obviously, the speed at which this can be implemented will have to vary according to comfort level, and as well as to how familiar and how constructive and how positive that relationship is. And also, I would also draw reference to an earlier concept of an ASEAN open skies. Again, the concept is that it is possible for win-win outcomes to be formulated using technology, so long as we get the diplomacy and the foreign relations right. And that's why we are focused on very intense, and I will say very delicate discussions and negotiations with our counterparts. And I hope you also understand that not all of this can be made public. A lot of these discussions are best conducted quietly behind closed doors, and give CAS and the authorities some more time. The bottom line is this: Changi Airport, air services, and in fact the logistics, the air logistics, is a very significant sector for us economically, and we must do our best to protect it, to nurture it, and to promote it. But the point I also want to make to our neighbors is that this is an area where we can engage in win-win collaboration and not zero-sum games. Thank you.
Dr. Janil.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dennis Tan asked about the need for the diesel tax as a nudge towards achieving our LTMP 2040 goals, given that we in government have committed to a clean public bus fleet and the taxi operators have already committed. Well, the short answer is yes, because I hope he agrees, firstly, that achieving a cleaner vehicular fleet is important for our personal health, the health of our city, and that's not going to happen without some nudges and some economic incentives and some regulatory structure in order to get there. It's quite telling that despite the fact that we in government have committed to an entirely clean public bus fleet by 2040, as have the taxi operators, not all the private hire car operators have agreed. It's not an easy decision to make. There is some cost and some difficulty associated with that. Secondly, we need a solution today. We need to start moving in that direction today and not wait until 2040 to find out whether we are moving in the right direction or not, or whether we have gotten there. Thirdly, not all the diesel today is only on taxis, only in taxis. We have commercial vehicles, goods vehicles, private buses as well. And so this is an important part of the vehicle population, and we will have to persuade the owners and drivers and operators of these vehicles to move along with us on this journey towards a cleaner fleet by 2040. It's not going to happen just because we've asked it to happen. I think it has to make economic sense, and some of that is going to have to include something like the change to the cost of diesel that we recently introduced.
Engineer Dr. Lee Biwa. Oh, no, Dr. Lam.
I'd like to thank Mr. Dennis Tan for the two clarifications. The first one is on the criteria for selecting the PMD operators. In fact, LTA will consider each application on its own merits based on the following criteria. We'll look at the company's track record. We look at whether they'll be able to be compliant with the law and regulatory requirements, whether there are plans to ensure public safety, and that includes the plans to educate users on safe riding behavior. There are redistribution plans, and at the same time, we also look at the overall demands for shared services and the availability of parking spaces. But having said that, I think we also need to take errant riders to task. An individual will actually be penalized under the existing active mobility regulations. With regards to your second question on the 1996 limitation of liability, I remember we had just passed the Merchant Shipping Amendment only in January this year, which was just 2 months ago. And MPA is currently looking at the implementation timeline with the relevant agencies, and will update the member as soon as we have the details.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick clarification with SMS Lam. No, my question on shared PMD, sorry if I didn't make myself clear. My question is really on, will the errant behavior of hirers be taken into account when the LTA assess whether or not the relevant operator has complied with the license operating conditions? That means after the license has been awarded, right? Will the errant behavior of their hirers be taken against them, so to speak? And also in respect of their hirers' eligibility to continue to hire with any of the commercial operator. So will errant behavior, let's say if this rider has been caught riding on the road when he's not supposed to, will that actually be taken against him? Because that will, if that's the case, then it will deter errant behavior, just like what we see with the shared bike. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to thank Mr. Dennis Tan for the further clarification. Yes, indeed, it depends on the circumstance whereby the errant rider has gone against the active mobility regulations and requirements. But of course, we look at the operator's best effort in educating users on safe riding behavior, and this will be taken into consideration, because it will not be exactly fair to just penalize the operator if the operator has done its best, in educating the users with regards to safe riding behavior. And at the same time, I think we will also use the same requirements on PMD users in the sense that if they do flout the AM regulations, such as parking indiscriminately, then we'll impose a ban on users according to how often he actually breaks the rules. And this will be applied to PMD shared services as well.
Engineer Lee Biwa.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank MOT for banning flights into Seletar Airport from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'm sure my residents are monitoring the emergency flights. I have one question for SMS Lam and one question for SPS BMK. For the crowded town center area like Khatib Center, where residents have been giving feedback that there are a lot of near-miss accidents caused by reckless cycling. Is LTA going to take enforcement action at locations like this, and whether LTA has sufficient manpower to do enforcement action? And my next question is LTA open to allowing town council to take on this role of taking enforcement action at town center where there are potential hazards? And my question to SPS Bay is that, talking about approval time frame by LTA, I'm sure LTA officers are all working very hard, trying their very best, but is SPS open for dialogue session with architects and engineers to hear their side of the problems that they are facing? Because I constantly receive feedback that the approval process is very long drawn, one written direction after another written direction. Perhaps you would like to have a dialogue session with the professionals. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Engineer Lee Bee Hua on her supplementary questions. In fact, we have addressed or discussed this issue in previous parliamentary sittings, and we understand Engineer Lee Bee Hua's concern with regard to the safety of pedestrians, especially her residents in her town council area. But I'd also like to reiterate that the use of footpaths, including footpaths in town council areas, are regulated under the Active Mobility Act. And the Active Mobility Act allows pedestrians, cyclists and PMD users to use such footpaths as they are crucial for connectivity. I think I've explained in my speech just now. And it is also important for these same rules to be applied consistently to all footpaths so that users will not be confused with different rules at different areas. For example, if we do allow a certain area in a certain town council to have no cycling zone, but allow it in other town councils, and PMD users or cyclists may not be aware that it's not allowed, and that will actually cause confusion. And LTA will continue to work with town council to assess the areas of concern and see whether we can have additional mitigating measures such as infrastructure works or better education and engagement efforts so that the safety concerns can be addressed. For example, if we know that there is a particular hotspot that may be prone to incidents, then we can have signages to warn PMD users, we can have signages to warn pedestrians. At the same time, we can also have CCTV installed to enforce or to catch errant riders in those areas. And LTA, together with MOT, is very committed to work with the Town Council of Engineer Lee Bee Hua, and we can have joint education programs as well as enforcement action to make sure that the hotspot that she's alluding to can be addressed in a timely manner.
Engineer Lee Bee Hua's question. So as a regulator, government of course play a role in terms of meeting the needs of various stakeholders, including end consumers, users of public transport, and industry as well. So public safety, the interests of public, as well as business commercial interests will have to be balanced. Maybe I'd just like to ask Engineer Lee Bee Hua, when you talk about architects and engineers, is there any particular area under LTAs or any of stat board's purview?
For any new projects, architects and engineers will have to make plan submission, so including LTA and BCA and many other government agencies. So when we talk about productivity, we hope that we can work together to see how best to expedite the approval rather than a lot of resubmission that cause a time delay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I believe Minister Chan Chun Sing in his earlier speech had talked about how public service should adapt and also meet the needs, adapt with changing times and technologies, but at the same time balancing the different needs of various stakeholder segments. Thank you.
Associate Professor Walter Teixeira.
Sir, I seek a clarification from SMS Janil on the role of the PTC, please. Currently, I understand it is limited by statute to just covering, to just advising on a public rail, bus, and taxi specifically. So I seek its view on whether it's appropriate to include other P2P services for a start, but eventually also active mobility services where balancing the interests of stakeholders and commuters is very important. And if not, then what are the ministry's plans for overseeing and advising on these emerging services in general? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I thank Professor Walter Teixeira for his suggestion. The PTC works closely together with LTA, and so when we are looking across the industry, we're working together. Land Transport Authority as a regulator, the PTC looking out for fair affordability and services to the citizen. So I think in his earlier speech he had made comments about integrating services, for example, and there are a number of aspects of integrating services. There's a regulatory component which LTA does take on in terms of how we might integrate different aspects of our regulatory framework, and PTC will continue to look out for the interests of commuters in terms of fares and fair affordability. So I don't know that necessarily I would agree that we need to reconsider the role of PTC at this point in time. There is a working relationship that appears to be working quite well. Perhaps as new models of public transport or as new models of P2P business operations or integrated services come along, we will continue to study and try to find the right response. But I take his point that we need an integrated series of solutions to link the different modalities of transport together.
Sito Ipin.
There was a report in the Straits Times yesterday about NTU and Volvo launching a autonomous electric bus that's 12 meters long. I noted that SMS Janil had mentioned that AVs are still a long way away from our roads. But can I ask, does MOT have a rough timeline as to when such AVs can be on our roads? Thank you.
Indeed, Mr. Chairman, we have a rough timeline. So today we have about 70 kilometers of roads in One North being used for on-road AV testing. So that's in a live environment. Those vehicles, the operators that do that, have already pre-tested these in facilities like CTRAN at NTU to establish the basic safety. The next phase, having established that on-road safety, is then to integrate these autonomous vehicles into live operations. And we've committed to making that possible in 3 towns, Tengah, Jurong Innovation District and Punggol, by 2023. What that will mean is we will have autonomous buses as a sort of live service integrated with the other bus services that are available. The issue of autonomous cars, so there are 2 different types of autonomous vehicles. Autonomous cars for private vehicle ownership, we don't have a timeline at the moment, but we're actively engaging with the industry. We've made calls for proposals, and we're working with a number of partners to establish what are the regulatory changes that we need, what is the local capability that we need, and perhaps in a future land transport master plan we might be able to announce something, but at the moment we don't have a timeline for that. Clear timeline for revenue service for autonomous buses. At the moment, no timeline for autonomous cars.
Mr. Sito Ipin, would you like to withdraw your amendment, please?
And I'd like to thank all speakers and the entire MOT team for their hard work. With that, Mr. Chairman, I beg leave to withdraw my amendment. Thank you.
Is the honourable member given leave to withdraw the amendment? I think leave of the majority is given. The amendment is withdrawn. The question is that the sum of $2,033,424,400 for head W stand part of the main estimates. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that the sum of $9,513,685,300 for head W stand part of the development estimates. As many as are of the opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.